welcome back to Living in Alignment with Madeline Hope. I am so happy that you are here. I feel like this week's episode is such a continuation of everything we've been talking about because we are in this space of the truth has been revealed, and now we are in the phase of trying to figure out what to do with that. And before we get into the astrology for this upcoming week, I want to start talking about last week, which has really become my favorite part of doing this podcast because it's not just me sitting here telling you dates and transits and what could happen. It's us actually looking at the lived in energy and being able to look back and be like, oh, wait, this makes sense. Last week, we talked a lot about the Scorpio full moon, Pluto stationing retrograde, Mars square Jupiter, and Mercury square Pluto, which is all really intense energy around truth, control, fear, power dynamics, and what's been sitting underneath the surface. I said last week that it felt like the energy was showing us where we've been trying to control something because we don't fully feel safe. And I don't know about you guys, but that showed up very clearly for me. It was a little spooky. I got chills. It was so crazy. I had this very sobering realization this past Tuesday morning. I literally wrote down the date and the time and my thought because it felt so, I don't know, I felt like I was hearing it from a different place. As strange as that sounds. But it's crazy because I wrote down the date and the time, and then whenever I was doing my all astrology pulls for the upcoming week, I was like, wait, that was literally the day that Mercury was in Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius, which is the truth in mind, like the truth in your mind transit. Like if you had to sum up that transit, that would be it. Like there's some truth laying in your mind. Mercury is ruling our thoughts, our perspective, our communication, and Pluto brings up our subconscious, our uncomfortable things that we don't always want to look at. So I had this moment where I realized I was using like anger and resentment as like a control tactic. I'm not saying that my anger about the situation isn't real because it is, but I also had to be honest with myself and realize that I've been keeping myself in a mindset there. Almost like I've been staying angry and checked out and negative because a part of me was scared that if I softened, then I'd convince myself to stay in this comfort, safe, like environment rather than going towards my evolution and my growth path, which I am very heavily focused on right now. And the anger was kind of protecting me and pushing me to not soften and let comfort sound good. Does that make sense? I had like this this is something I've been dealing with for a while, and I'm not getting into specifics because it's my real life and it's all things happening behind the scenes. And anyways, but it was crazy because I've been dealing with this anger and resentment for a while. And I had no idea, like, yes, I knew that the anger was like what it was about, but I couldn't shake it. And I'm not an angry person. I'm really not. If you know me personally, I'm not like at all. It's kind of hard to get me angry. And I have Mars in Pisces, okay? So I was like, where is the anger coming from? Like, I can't shake it. And then I realized on Tuesday that I'm using my anger as a comfort blanket because if I soften, then now I realize that the thing isn't maybe as bad, but it has to be bad for me to like be done with it. Are we hearing what I'm saying? Anyways, I had this crazy somewhere in my mind, it just popped into my head. I wasn't even thinking about it. And it was like, whoa, it was crazy, very sobering. basically what I'm saying is anger is information. Sometimes anger shows you where a boundary has been crossed or where something is no longer aligned, because sometimes we use anger as armor. We use it to keep ourselves from grieving, from getting comfortable. We use it to make sure we don't abandon the truth we already know. And that is very Scorpio full moon Pluto energy. It's not just like, this thing is bothering me. It's, why is this bothering me so much? What is this showing me? What am I trying to protect? And what truth am I scared I'll forget if I let myself soften? Crazy stuff. And that's why I think last week was so important, because it wasn't just emotional intensity for no reason. It was revealing. It was like the universe pulled back the curtain and said, this is what's actually happening under the surface. This is what you've been tolerating. This is what you've been managing. This is what you've been trying to make peace with, even though your body already knows it's not peaceful. So if last week felt heavy or mentally intense, or like something finally clicked that you cannot unsee now, that lines up. And I don't think the point was to make a huge decision immediately. This epiphany I had didn't prompt immediate change necessarily, big change. Last week was just a mirror. And this week is what happens after we look in the mirror. Because now we move into the dates of May 8th through May 15th. And this week has a very different feeling. It's still connected to that truth that we were just revealed to, but it's not as chaotic. This week feels like the space between release and reset. It's like last week pulled something up. This week helps us sit with it, understand it, and let it land. And then next week, the Taurus New Moon on May 16th, we start building from a new place. So this episode is really just about that middle space. Literally, this episode covers the entire period between these realizations and whenever a new beginning starts. So we are literally in the middle. We're in the space where we know something is shifting, but it's not fully here yet. We've seen the truth, but our nervous system is still catching up. Or we want a new beginning, but we're also realizing that new beginnings require us to stop dragging old patterns into the next chapter. I'm feeling this energy in real time so deeply. It's actually crazy. I have something happening this week that could potentially shift my whole life, and it's bringing up the exact tension we're talking about with wanting freedom, wanting change, a new chapter, but also wanting to know that all this new exciting stuff is still safe and stable and sustainable before making that jump. And I think that's such a perfect example of this week's energy, because sometimes the universe starts opening a door before we feel fully ready to walk through it. And the work is not always to force yourself to be fearless. Sometimes the work is to say, okay, I'm allowed to be nervous. I'm allowed to have questions. I'm allowed to want this and still want to discern whether it actually supports the life I'm building. That's a big distinction, because fear says, what if this goes wrong? But our intuition asks, does this actually feel aligned? Fear tries to answer before you have all the information. Intuition lets you gather the information and stay connected to yourself while you do it. And that is very much the energy of the week. So let's get into it. We start on Friday, May 8th, with the moon in Aquarius. And this is important because Pluto just stationed retrograde in Aquarius on May 6th. So the moon moving through Aquarius is kind of emotionally touching the same territory Pluto has been reviewing. Aquarius energy is future focused, detached, observational. It's a part of us that needs space so we can see the bigger picture. So Friday may feel like you're needing emotional distance from something, not necessarily because you don't care, but because you need perspective. And I think this is really important because we tend to judge ourselves when we need space. We think we're being cold or avoidant or disconnected. And yes, sometimes we are avoiding. But sometimes emotional distance is not avoidance, it's just perspective. Sometimes you can't see the pattern while you're inside of it. You need to step back and say, wait, this is not just about what happened today. This is connected to a bigger problem. This is connected to the way I've been showing up, to the people I've been trying to belong to the version of myself that I thought I would be or should be. Aquarius energy helps us zoom out. I have so many Aquarius placements, like I'm incredibly Aquarius coded. And so I'm always retreating to go figure things out, whether that's in my relationships or at work. If I'm being asked to make a big decision or make a choice, I don't like doing that in the middle of an interaction where the energy is clouded. I like to leave the room, be alone, and make a decision in the comfortable, chaotic silence that is my brain. But the shadow side of Aquarius, and something that I'm constantly working to overcome, is that we can intellectualize our feelings instead of actually processing them, which basically means you're trying to make sense of or define your feelings rather than just feeling them. That's like, okay, well, I'm kind of mad right now. Well, I'm mad because this person made me mad, instead of letting yourself be mad. What do you want to do with that anger? Do you want to talk to them about it? Do you want to just go on a run? Do you want to make a bold change? Like, feel your anger. What is your anger? What does it feel like? Does it feel like you want to scream? Does it feel like you want to run? Does it feel like you just need a break and to turn your phone off for an hour? What does it feel like? Instead of just defining it. Oh, well, I'm mad because of this. Right. But what does it feel like? You know? So just make sure that you are giving yourself the space, but you're also not disconnecting from how you feel, because those are very different. And I think that's a very great way to work with the Aquarius moon. Let it give you perspective, let it help you detach from the immediate emotional charge, but don't use it to abandon the feeling completely. Then on Saturday, May 9th, we have the last quarter moon, which will be in Aquarius. And this is one of the biggest pieces of this upcoming week. A last quarter moon is the halfway point between the full moon and the next new moon. So think about it like this. The the full moon is the reveal. The last quarter moon is the adjustment. The new moon is the reset. So you got the reveal, then you got to adjust something, and now you can start over, right? Like you learn something, you adjust to it, and now you reap the rewards, or you start the new life or whatever it is that this reveal prompted you to do. So we had the Scorpio full moon on May 1st, which revealed something deeper. It brought truth up. It showed us what was sitting underneath. And now on May 9th, the last quarter moon in Aquarius is asking, now that you know this, what needs to change? Not what necessarily needs to be destroyed or happen overnight, but what needs adjusted because you can't unknow what you know now. This last quarter moon is happening with the sun in Taurus and the moon in Aquarius. So we have this tension between Taurus and Aquarius. Taurus is stability, comfort, the body, consistency, resources, what feels safe, familiar, what we can touch and trust. Taurus is very tangible. Now, Aquarius is change, future, freedom, perspective, community, innovation, and the parts of us that say, I know this is how it's always been, but is it actually working? Very different than Taurus energy. So, this last quarter moon is asking, can I stay grounded, Taurus, without staying stuck, Aquarius? Can I honor my need for stability without using comfort as an excuse to avoid change? Can I move towards the future without abandoning my body and nervous system? Mm. And I feel like that is such a real life question, because sometimes we say we want change, and the moment change starts to become real, our bodies go, wait, hold on, is this safe? And that doesn't mean that the change is wrong. It means your nervous system needs to be included in the process. This is especially true with Taurus energy. Taurus does not like to be rushed. Taurus does not respond well to chaos. Taurus needs to feel grounded, resourced, and connected to the body. So, this last quarter moon is not asking you to blow up your life. It's asking you to stop calling something stable when it's actually just familiar. That's the difference. Something can be familiar and still be draining. It can be predictable and still not be aligned. It can be safe on paper and still feel like your body is slowly shutting down inside of it. That is the Taurus Aquarius tension. Taurus says, I want to feel safe. Aquarius says, but is this version of safety actually keeping you trapped? I had to let that sit for a second. So Saturday is a really good day to check in with where you're holding on to the old version of stability, not from shame or pressure, just awareness. Where am I choosing what I know because I'm afraid of what I don't know? Where am I telling myself I'm being practical when really I'm just scared to change? And also, where am I trying to move too fast and not honoring my very real need to feel grounded? Because both can be true. That's the nuance. This week is not saying leap blindly, it's saying be honest. Then on Sunday, May 10th, we get one of the sweetest transits of the week. The Sun in Taurus is forming a sextile with Jupiter in Cancer. Adorable. After the beginning of May, this is needed. This is supportive, nourishing, grounding. It's emotional warmth. Taurus and Cancer together are like food and home, body and safety, rest, comfort, care, sunlight, your favorite blanket, a clean kitchen, a slow morning, a real meal, being around people who make your nervous system relax. That is like Taurus and Cancer together. And I know that sounds simple, but that's the point. This transit reminds us that healing does not always have to be a giant breakthrough. Sometimes healing is letting yourself be supported, eating enough food, cleaning your space, sitting outside, letting someone love you without making them prove it. And sometimes it's just taking the pressure off of your body and remembering that your life is more than the problem that you're trying to solve. I think this is one of the most important messages of the week. You are allowed to be supported while you are changing. You don't have to be in a crisis to grow. And you don't have to make every decision from survival mode. Sun, sextile Jupiter can bring hope, expansion, wisdom, and a feeling that maybe things are not as stuck as they seemed. Because it's Taurus and Cancer. It's not loud. It's not probably going to feel like fireworks. It feels like an exhale. It may feel like, okay, I can do this. I can take the next step. I can trust that I'm being guided. So, Sunday is a beautiful day to nourish yourself and let the body feel safe. And I really mean that practically. Eat real food, go outside, take a slow shower, clean your room, prep your meals, call someone who makes you exhale. Let your body understand that you are not in immediate danger just because your life is changing. This is happening on a Sunday. I feel that the universe does nothing by accident. Astrology has made me a huge believer in that because I've seen it happen so many times where I'm like, this isn't an accident. It's impossible. There's no way. This is one of those perfect examples of that. This is happening on Sunday, on Mother's Day. This is happening in May, in spring. We are having a incredibly grounding and nurturing transit on this day after an incredible amount of nervous system overwhelm. This day is telling you that this next phase of your life, this new moon that's coming up, needs you to have a regulated nervous system. You cannot bring all of the old trauma and nerves. If you are in constant state of fight or flight, which a lot of us have been lately, let's just be real. It's been rough. It doesn't want you to bring that into your new life, into your next phase. It doesn't belong there. Those burdens you are carrying, you don't need to carry anymore. That's what this realization was. That's going to make me cry. That's what this last realization was. It was telling you you are holding onto anger, control, resentment, these negative emotions, keeping you in a state of fight or flight. Your nervous system is dysregulated. And this epiphany said, you don't have to. Maybe you do right now because the situation hasn't changed, but it's changing. And this new life doesn't deserve the burdens of your old one. So Sunday is giving you the opportunity to re-regulate. I literally am going, just so you guys know what I'm doing, I'm literally going to physically shake off my anger, my resentment, my control, all of the nervous system dysregulation. I'm shaking it out. I'm doing somatic relief, like dancing. If you have a question about it, you can email me, text me, snap me, whatever. I will tell you about it and I will give you some practices to do. Somatic healing is so perfect for this. That's what I'm going to be doing if you want to take a chapter out of my book. But our nervous system has to catch up to our clarity. And that is what this Sunday is about. Then on Monday, May 11th, the moon is in Pisces. So after that Aquarius moon helped us get perspective, Pisces comes in and softens us. And this is so perfect after that Cancer moon and that whole transit. It really gets soft. Pisces moon is emotional, intuitive, spiritual, dreamy, creative, sensitive. This is the day where things may feel a little more tender. You may feel more tired, more reflective. You may feel like you need quiet music, water, journaling, meditation, or just a softer start to the week. And Pisces is beautiful for compassion. But the shadow side of Pisces is that boundaries can get blurry. So this is a day where you want to let yourself feel without dissolving into everything, without consuming everything. Let yourself be sensitive without making every emotion a prophecy. Let yourself be intuitive without assuming every fear is a sign. That's important. Because after a week like this past week, it can be really easy to be like, okay, I feel anxious, so that must mean something really bad is going to happen. But that's not always intuition. Sometimes your body is just processing change. Your nervous system is just tired. You're feeling the weight of everything you've been carrying, and your body is asking you to be gentle with it. So, Monday is integration energy. It's not necessarily the day to force answers. It's more of a day to say, what am I feeling now that the intensity has settled a little bit? Now that I've shaken off this hold of control I had, how does it feel to be a little unguarded? To not be on guard, to not be in a state of fight or flight and panic. How does it feel? What part of myself needs compassion? What am I ready to release emotionally before this new moon? That is Monday. We are shaking off what we are releasing on Monday or on Sunday. Then on Monday, we are letting ourselves feel what it feels like to be open and no longer on guard all the time, and gaining information from that, because Pisces is so intuitive. We are going to be able to understand ourselves more and hear ourselves more. Our emotional selves are going to say, okay, whenever my guard is down, I'm really scared of getting hurt. So what do I need in order to stay open and not hateful and hold on to control and resentment, but rather stay open and still safe? What does that look like for me? Then on Tuesday, May 12th, we have another really supportive transit, which is Mercury in Taurus, sextiling Jupiter in Cancer. Another Taurus and Cancer combination, only this time it's Mercury instead of the Sun. This is beautiful for communication. This is very different from Mercury square Pluto last week. Last week, Mercury square Pluto was intense. It was digging, obsessive, deep conversations, hard truths, mental pressure, and realizing the thing underneath the thing. Mercury sextile Jupiter is more spacious. It's like the mind finally gets a little room to breathe. Mercury in Taurus says, let's keep this simple. What are the facts? What matters? What is practical? What do I value? Jupiter in Cancer is saying, how do we bring emotional wisdom into this? How do we speak in a way that supports safety, growth, and care? So, this can be a great day for conversations, journaling, writing, podcasting, sending the email, making the plan, or finally being able to say what you mean in a grounded way. And I think this is a good day to come back to the question, what am I learning from this instead of just reacting to it? Because that's the difference between last week and this week. Last week may have been the reaction. This week gives you the chance to make meaning from it. And Mercury sextile Jupiter is really good for that. It helps us zoom out without losing touch with reality. It helps us communicate from a more grounded place. It helps us understand the bigger picture. This is also a great transit for asking, how can I speak from security instead of defensiveness? How can I explain what I need without trying to control the other person's response? How can I trust my truth enough to say it simply? Because Mercury in Taurus does not need a 45 slide presentation to prove the point. It says what is real, and sometimes that's enough. No is a full sentence. Then on Wednesday, May 13th, the moon is still moving through late Pisces before we shift into Aries. So this day feels like emotional closure before action kicks in. Late Pisces moon can feel like the end of a dream, the end of a cycle, and the emotional residue before the next beginning. You may feel a little floaty, nostalgic, tired, or spiritually reflective. And then as the moon starts moving towards Aries, the fire starts to come back in. So Wednesday can feel like that moment where part of you is still processing, but another part of you is starting to get really restless. Like your soul is saying, okay, I felt it. I'm ready to move. But this is where I would still be gentle, because when we go from Pisces to Aries, it can feel like we're going from water to fire, from surrender to action, softness to urgency. And if you haven't let yourself fully process, that Aries fire can turn into irritation or impulsiveness really quickly. So, Wednesday is a good day to close the emotional loop. Journal, walk, pray, meditate, cry if you need to. Move your body gently. Ask yourself, what am I done carrying into the next cycle? That's something we need to know by Wednesday. Ask yourself the question, what am I not bringing into this next phase of my life? Because we are building towards this Taurus new moon on May 16th, and this is a cleaning week. We are clearing out all of our old baggage, and Wednesday is one of those days where the emotional debris may need somewhere to go. Then on Thursday, May 14th, we get probably the biggest clarity moment of the week. It is a Mercury cazimi in Taurus. And if you don't know what a cazimi is, it is when a planet is perfectly in the middle, like aligned in front of the sun. Like just picture this little planet perfectly, this circle in the middle of the sun. That is a cazimi. So, Mercury, the planet of communication, thinking, information, and understanding, comes into the heart of the sun in Taurus. And this can bring a moment of clarity, realization, a conversation, a thought, a message, a piece of information, or just a simple knowing. But because this is happening in Taurus, I don't think that clarity is going to feel frantic or overly complicated. It's not necessarily the kind of clarity where your mind is racing and you're having 17 downloads at once. This is Taurus clarity. It's grounded. So it might sound like, this is what matters. This is what I value, what I need, what my body's been telling me. This is what's sustainable. This is something I can build on. This is where I need to stop negotiating with myself. That's the energy. And I love this because after all of that Scorpio full moon and Pluto intensity, we're now getting clarity more through the chaos. We're getting clarity by slowing down through the body, through our values, through simplicity, through finally being able to be honest about what's real. So, Thursday, the message is the clarity probably won't come from spiraling harder. It comes from when you slow down enough to hear what your body already knows. Your body's been telling you. Have you been listening? And I know I say that a lot. And this week specifically, that is the work. Because Taurus rules the body. It rules our relationship to safety, stability, pleasure, money, resources, food, nature, and just like the physical world. So if you're confused this week, don't just ask your mind, ask your body. When you think about that choice, do you feel yourself expand or contract? When you imagine that future, does your body soften or tense? When you say the truth out loud, do you feel relief even if it's scary? That matters. Your body is not separate from your intuition. And with Mercury, cazimi, in Taurus, the body may be the messenger. Then on Friday, May 15th, the moon is in Aries. So now the energy starts to pick back up. After the Aquarius perspective, the Pisces softness, and the Taurus clarity, Aries brings activation. It's like the body starts saying, okay, now what are we doing with this? Aries moon can bring motivation, courage, irritation, impatience, and a desire to act because we're building towards Mars conjunct Chiron in Aries on May 16th, right around the Taurus New Moon. So this Aries moon may touch something tender. It can bring up wounds around independence, anger, confidence, rejection, self trust, or feeling like you have to fight for yourself. You may notice yourself getting triggered around not being heard, not being supportive, not being free, or not feeling like you have permission to choose yourself. And this is where I want to be careful with the way we talk about Aries, because Aries is not just be bold, go do the thing. Sometimes Aries is the part of us that had to learn courage because we didn't feel protected. Sometimes Aries is the part of us that gets angry because we've abandoned ourselves too many times. Sometimes it's the part of us that says, I can't keep waiting for everyone else to understand before I choose myself. And with Chiron involved, the action may feel tender, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. It means there is healing and courage. There is healing in saying, I'm allowed to want something different. There is healing in not waiting until you feel completely fearless before you take the next step. So Friday is where the action starts to return. But the invitation is to act from self trust, not from urgency. Because that's been the whole lesson of this month so far. Not fear, not control, not proving, not escaping, self trust. And then, even though this episode technically covers May 8th through the 15th, I want to mention Saturday, May 16th, because that's the Taurus New Moon, and it's really what this whole week is leading us into. And I will be talking about this on the next podcast, so make sure you listen. But this Taurus New Moon is the reset. After the Scorpio Full Moon revealed the truth, after Pluto retrograde started the deeper review, after the last quarter moon asked us to adjust, the new moon asked, what are you ready to build now? Not from survival, from self-worth, from peace, from values, from your body, from the version of safety that is actually aligned with who you're becoming. And I think that's the difference. Because so many of us build lives based on what kept us safe in the past, what we were taught felt safe. We build around old fears, fears that aren't ours, old responsibilities, old expectations, identities, old versions of stability. And then one day we wake up and realize, wait, this life makes sense on paper, but my body does not feel alive in it. And Taurus energy is deeply connected to aliveness, not in a dramatic way, in a very simple way. Do I enjoy my life? Do I feel supported by my routines? Do I have enough space to breathe? Do I like who I'm becoming? Do I feel connected to my body? Do I feel nourished by what I'm building? This is what this new moon is preparing us for. So this week is the bridge. Last week showed you the truth. This week helps you understand it. The Taurus new moon helps you build from it. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you're in a weird in between space right now, you are not doing anything wrong. You may be between the life you've outgrown and the life you're still learning how to trust. And that space can feel really confusing because the old thing is familiar, but it doesn't feel aligned. And the new thing feels exciting, but it doesn't feel safe right now. And that is just being human. I think this week is asking us not to rush through that space, but to listen inside of it. Because clarity doesn't always come when we force the answer. Sometimes clarity comes up when we stop spiraling long enough to hear the quiet truth that has been there the whole time. So this week, pay attention to what your body keeps telling you. Pay attention to what gives you relief. Pay attention to what feels sustainable, not just impressive. Pay attention to the conversations that feel grounding. Pay attention to where you're choosing familiarity over truth. And pay attention to where you may be mistaking fear for intuition. Because fear will feel urgent. Fear will make you want to fix everything right now. Fear will make you want to control the outcome, prove your worth, explain yourself perfectly, or make the decision before you have all the information. But intuition is quieter. It may still feel uncomfortable. It may still ask something brave of you, but it won't feel frantic. So let this week be the space where the truth lands. You don't have to know the entire plan. You don't have to make the perfect decision. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be honest enough with yourself to stop pretending you don't know what you know. And then from there, let the next step reveal itself. If you haven't already, I highly recommend listening to my bonus podcast, the May horoscope one that I posted last week, because that could give you some hints as to what this is all showing up for you as. I want to disclaim that if you feel like your reading doesn't make sense, please email me because I know why that is. It's because houses aren't perfectly equal. And I do whole sign whenever I do horoscopes, meaning if you're a Taurus rising, this is happening in your first and seventh. But if your ascendant, if your rising sign is a late degree Taurus, placements that happen in early Taurus will not be in your first house. It will be in your 12th until it gets to the late degree of Taurus. And that shifts all of your signs. So really getting a reading and understanding all of your placements and where they are in your houses and what signs are in them will help you understand horoscopes so much because every time someone's like, nope, that doesn't resonate, I'm like, whoa, 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 there's truth here. We just have to find it. Let me see your chart. But yeah, listen to May horoscopes. If you have any questions, email me, hopekeeker@gmail.com. It's always in the show notes. And